Hey guys, welcome to the video lesson for the Inquiry Lab on number line. So let's get started. At the top it says Marcus and Silvio are at the beach. Marcus builds a sandcastle 0.6 meter high. Silvio digs a hole in the sand 0.8 meter deep. Now what we're going to do is we're going to investigate these heights on a vertical number line here. So in step 1, it says complete the number line from -1 to 1 with increments of 2/10. So notice -1 starts down here, +1 starts up here, and increments of 2/10. So when I'm doing this, I actually like to start at the 0. So if you see 0 is right here, and it says increments of 2/10. So I'm going to start with 2/10, and then the next one is 4/10. So 2/10, 4/10, 6/10. It's just like you're counting by 2s. And we have 8/10 and 1 whole. Alright, going down, we're going to do the same thing. So we have -2/10. The next will be -4/10. Then we have -6/10, and the last box will be -8/10. Alright, so we completed the number line in step 1. In step 2, it says the sandcastle is above sea level. Its height is greater than 0 on a number line. So draw a dot at blank to represent the sandcastle. Now remember up in the problem above, it said that Marcus builds a sandcastle, I'll highlight it here, at 0.6 meters high. So we're going to put a dot at 0.6 to show the height of the sandcastle, which is right here. And notice it's the height of the sandcastle. So, oh, I hear my dogs barking. Then in step 3, the hole is below sea level. Its depth is less than 0 on the number line, so draw a dot at blank to represent the hole. So remember at the top, Silvio digs a hole that's 8/10 meter deep. So we're going to draw a dot at 8/10 meter to show where the hole is. Oh, that's -8/10. I'm sorry, I said 8/10. Alright, so that's done with the investigation. Now we're going to go on to the page. Okay, so now we're going to work on number 1 through 4. We'll do a couple of these together first. So the directions say to work with a partner, graph each number on a number line. So what we're going to do, let me zoom in here, is we have to graph -2.4. So what we could do is, I don't know, let's maybe start and make this line at the top -1. I'll write -1.0. So that would mean this would be -1.2, -1.4, -1.6, -1.8, -2, which can be 2.0. -2.2, -2.4, -2.6, -2.8, and -3. Now all we have to do is just put a dot at -2.4. So I'm going to put a dot right there. And there's different ways you can number that number line. That's just one. I mean, you didn't have to start with -1 at the top. Now, if we do, let's see, why don't we do number 2 together, and then I'll have you try 3 and 4. So in number 2, we only have to graph 0.1. So let's start, maybe we'll put 0 right in the middle. That's not actually a good spot. Let me put it right in the middle there. All right. And now, instead of counting by 2/10, we can count by 1/10. Maybe this is 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, and 5/10. And going negative, this could be -1/10, -2/10, -3/10, -4/10, and -5/10. So when we graph this one, we'll just put a dot at 1/10, which is right there. So again, you didn't have to start with 0 in the middle, but it was just something that you could do. Now, what I want you to do is you're going to do number 3 and number 4 on your own. You'll pause the video, do them, and then we'll start up. Now, I will tell you, you don't have to do them exactly like me, but I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to start with, in number 3, I'm going to put my -4 over here. And I'm going to count by 1/10, so I'll do -4.1, etc. You don't have to do it that way. You could do it your own way. And number 4, since I have to do -6.8, I'm just going to start with -6 over here. And I'll do -6.1, etc. That's just what I'm going to do, but you can do it your own way. Anyway, pause the video, do 3 and 4, restart it when you're done. Go. All right, so let me continue. I'm going to number my number lines 3 and 4 real quick, and then we'll get started. So one thing I might actually do to save some space is instead of writing every one, I'm going to write every other one. But I'm still going to count. This will still be negative 4.1, and I'll write negative 4.2. So that just makes it a little less messy. So negative 4.3, negative 4.4. Negative 4.5, negative 4.6. So this would be negative 4.8. And this would be negative, not 4.10. This would be negative 5. So I had to graph negative 4.5, and negative 4.5 would be right there between negative 4.4 and negative 4.6. Now I'll do the same thing in number 4. So this one here will be negative 6.1, so this will be negative 6.2. And I'll just write that one. Then I'll skip negative 6.3 and then negative 6.4. This will be 6.5, so this will be, I'll write 6.6, negative 6.8, and negative 7.0. So then I have to put a dot on negative 6.8, which would be right there. So I am counting by 1/10, but I don't write every single one because I got a little sloppy. All right, so remember, yours could be a little different, but let's go down to investigation 2, because now we're going to talk about fractions. This is graph negative 3/4 on a number line. So in step 1, it says model negative 3/4 using fraction tiles. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use fraction tiles. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a number line. Now, if I'm going for negative 3/4, what I know is that fraction is going to be between 0 and negative 1 on a number line. Now, notice how my number line is split. It's split into fourths, 4 sections. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I do that, if I'm counting by fourths, starting at the 0, this would be negative 1/4. This would be negative 2/4, which you know is half. And this would be negative 3/4. So then I'm just going to put my dot on negative 3/4 right there. Okay? So let's go on to the next page. All right, on this page, we're going to do a couple that have fractions. So I'll do some with you, and then I'll have you try some. So number 5, you have negative 4/5. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with 0 at the top and negative 1 here. Because remember, all positive fractions, unless they're improper, will be between 0 and 1. Negative fractions, unless they're improper, will be between 0 and negative 1. So notice the number line is split into 5 sections, or fifths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I were numbering, this would be negative 1/5, negative 2/5, negative 3/5, negative 4/5, and negative 5/5 is just negative 1 whole. And then I can put my number line right here. All right? So let's do another one together. This time, let's do number 7. It's positive 7/10. So since it's positive, I know my number line is going to be between 0 and 1 whole. And notice here, this is split into 10 sections, or tenths. So if I'm numbering it, just like the one we did on the last page, I'm not going to number every single one. But if I did, this would be 1/10, but I'm only going to number every second one. So this is 2/10. Now remember, 2/10 is actually 1/5. So if you wanted to be really cool, you can reduce it to 1/5. That would be crazy. Then we'd have, I'll write 2/10 above just in case that confuses you. So here's 2/10. So then we'd have 3/10. This would be 4/10. And remember, 4/10 reduces to 2/5. 1/2 would be right here. So then I'd have, which is 5/10. So I have 6/10 here, which is 3/5. This would be 7/10. So 8/10 is here, which is 4/5. And 9/10 is here. So when I put 7/10, it's going to be right in between 6 and 8/10. It's going to be right there at 7/10. All right. Now we're going to have you guys try a couple. So I want you to try, let's have you just try number 8. Now be careful because it's negative. So get started. If you're stuck, you can always watch the video with me. Go. So let's see how you did. So since it's negative, 0 is going to be over here, and negative 1 is going to be here. Now since it's eighths, notice that we're splitting it into 8 sections. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Each section is an eighth. So if I were numbering it, this would be negative 1/8 right here. But I'm only going to write negative 2/8, which remember is negative 1/4. This will be negative 3/8. This will be negative 4/8. And that's half, negative half. Negative 5/8. This will be negative 6/8. Also negative 3/4. And here's negative 7/8. Since it's negative 3/8, I'm going to put that right here between negative 2/8 and negative 4/8. All right. Hopefully you got that right. If not, make sure you fix it. Now, let's try one of these where they don't have it split into sections with us. Let's go to number 10. So notice this is negative 3/10. So I'm going to start here will be my 0, and here will be my negative 1. Now, since it's tenths, I'm going to split it into 10 sections. I usually start by splitting it in half. So that's negative half. And then each half into 5 pieces. So I'm going to try doing that here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 lines get you 5 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now if you count, you'll have 10 sections. So when I'm numbering, I'll switch to red so you can see it. This would be negative 1/10. This is negative 2/10. Negative 3/10. This will be negative 4/10. Negative 5/10 or half. Negative 6/10. Negative 7/10. Negative 8/10. And negative 9/10. And now when I graph negative 3/10, I only have to count over. I'll use the arrow here. 1, 2, 3. Negative 3/10 is right between negative 2 and negative 4/10. Okay. So, are you ready to try one? I want you to try number 11. So we have to graph negative 5/12. My hint to you would be start, since it's negative, with your 0 here and your negative 1 here, and split it into 12 sections. All right, pause the video. Go. All right, so let's see how you did. So first off, I'd cut this section into 12 pieces because this is 12ths. And I numbered every other one. So this is negative 2/12, negative 4/12, 6/12, etc. So I just have to put a dot at negative 5/12, which will be right here in between negative 6 and negative 4/12. So hopefully yours looks something like that one. And we only have 2 more to do. They're going to be decimals. So I'll do one with you, and then I'll have you try another one. So in number 6, we have to graph negative 5.75. So we're going to start with negative 5 here and negative 6 here, because 5.75 is between 5 and 6. Now, 0.75 is actually quarters. It's like 3/4. So I'm going to split this into 4 sections. So this would be negative 5.25. This will be negative 5.50, or 5.5. This will be negative 5.75. And once I do that, I can put a dot right here at negative 5.75. All right, so I want you to try number 9. Remember, 8.75 is between 8 and 9. Pause the video, restart it when you're done. Go. All right, let's see how you did. So I'm going to, since we're doing 0.75, that's quarters again. So I'm going to split it into 4 sections. This will be 8.25, 8.50, 8.75. And I'm going to put a dot right here at 8.75 because that's what it said to do. All right, you are done with me, so make sure you have this all done. I hope you don't have any questions, but if you do, come ask me. I won't yell at you. Yeah, I will. But then we'll go over them later.